All right, let's get going tonight. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Larson. I'm Chair of the Wheat Ridge Planning Commission, and I'd like to welcome you all to our twice monthly meeting of the Wheat Ridge Planning Commission. Thank you all for joining us. Before we begin, here are a few notes about our meeting format. Tonight, we will have planning commissioners and staff attending in person, as well as members of the public. Based on the latest public health order from Jefferson County, we are asking commissioners and all those attending to wear a face mask during the meeting. Please do not remove your mask when speaking, and remember to speak clearly and directly into the microphone. We are also broadcasting this meeting for viewers on Channel 8 and wheatridgespeaks.org. Members of the public who are not present and who wish to make comments may participate virtually by joining through Zoom, either on a device or by calling in. The Zoom meeting information is provided on wheatridgespeaks.org. When it is time for public comment, and there are 4 public comment periods tonight, we will first call on those who wish to speak in person, followed by anyone attending the meeting online and speaking through our Zoom connection. If you are speaking online tonight, please keep background noise to a minimum. If you do not plan to participate by speaking this evening, we recommend you simply view the meeting by watching live on Channel 8 or wheatridgespeaks.org. We appreciate your participation in tonight's meeting. We hope to create a friendly and respectful atmosphere for public dialogue, and we appreciate your help in the process. I would now like to call to order the City of Wheat Ridge Planning Commission for October 21st, 2021. May I get a roll call of the members, please?
Jahi Simbai.
Here.
Scott Ohm.
Here.
Christine Disney.
Here.
Janet Leo. Here. Daniel Larson.
Here.
Ari Krichiver, Melissa Antol, and Will Kearns are absent tonight.
The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we will approve the order of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the order of tonight's agenda?
I move that we approve the order of tonight's agenda.
Is there? Thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda? I'll call for a vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we will vote to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting on October 7th, 2021?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes of October 7, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call for a vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. We will now open the general interest public forum segment of our agenda. This is the time for any person to speak on a subject that is not on tonight's agenda. If you plan to speak on one of the 3 items on tonight's public hearing agenda, please wait until the hearing for that item. All speakers are asked to limit their speeches to 3 minutes. Speakers may not donate their time. If you plan to speak, please give us your name, spell your last name, and share your address. Is there anyone signed up to speak in the general interest forum?
No one has signed up in person.
Is there anyone on Zoom who is raising their hand to speak?
We have a couple people joining us. If you are on Zoom and would like to comment on something not appearing on the agenda, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. If you are on the phone, please enter *9 to raise your hand. Currently, I'm seeing nobody raising their hand.
So seeing that there are no people that have chosen to comment tonight on our general interest forum, I will close the general interest public forum. Let's move on to our public hearings. Our first public hearing case tonight is case number WS 21-02, an application filed by Silver Cloud Properties, LLC, for approval of a 6-lot major subdivision in the residential 3, known as R3, zone district located at 3900 or 3920 Upham Street. I'd like to again welcome members of the public to our hearing. It is important that this hearing be conducted in a dignified and civil manner. Our goal, as always, is to create a friendly and respectful atmosphere for public dialogue, and we appreciate your help in this process. We start all public hearings with a presentation from staff, and in some cases, a presentation by the applicant. After the presentation, the commissioners will ask questions of the staff and the applicant, and then we'll invite the public for their comments during the citizens forum. We'll turn it over to staff for their presentation.
Thank you. My name is...
I'm sorry, one second. Did we close the public hearing? We're closing the public forum at the beginning of the meeting and moving on to our public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Scott Cutler. I'm a planner with the City of Wheat Ridge, and this is case number WS2102, a request for approval of a 6-lot subdivision located in the Residential 3 Zone District. I'd like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the subdivision regulations, and this digital presentation. The properties within the City of Wheat Ridge and all appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met. Therefore, Planning Commission has jurisdiction to hear this case. This is a 2020 aerial view of the property, which is outlined in red, and it's about 1.3 acres in size. It's located on the east side of Upham Street between 38th Avenue and 44th Avenue. And Upham Street to the north is residential. It has a mix of single-family and multifamily properties. And then to the south and east is the Stevens Elementary School property. West Metro Fire Department is also located to the south, just south of the site. And then to the southwest is an office building. Further south on Upham Street is the West 38 mixed-use building with apartments and retail. The subject site is zoned residential 3, as are all of the properties in this area and to the north on Upham Street. And R3 allows for a range of residential uses from single family to townhomes and small apartments up to 12 units per acre. The mixed-use neighborhood MUN zone is to the south and southeast, and this is also the zoning along 38th Avenue. This zone allows residential, commercial, and civic uses. And then the MUC zone district is to the southwest and includes more intensive commercial and residential uses. Subdivision regulations are in Article 4 of the zoning code, and a plat is a document that creates lots, tracts, or parcels for development. It removes, creates, and defines property lines, allows the city to evaluate right-of-way, and it allows the city to review civil construction documents. Does not change the zoning or permitted uses on the property. It enables development already permitted by the current zoning, and it does not look at site or building design. And for this project, building design and placement will be reviewed at time of building permit for compliance with the R3 development standards. The request tonight is to create 6 developable lots based on the R3 standards. The plat will also dedicate 16.5 to 26.5 feet of right-of-way along Upham Street to make room for public improvements, which will include a 5-foot attached sidewalk, curb, gutter, and lighting. And the reason for the large dedication is that the property line actually stretches to the middle of Upham Street in some places, meaning that a large portion of the street is not actually in city right-of-way, which is an unusual condition. And the plat also will dedicate access, utility, and drainage easements, as well as a drainage tract. This is page 2 of the plat document, which is Exhibit 3 in the staff report. And Upham Street is to the west. You can see the 6 lots, and then the T-shaped central drive and tract A on the east. This is the plat with a little bit more detail, and the proposed private drive to access each lot is shown in gray, and is also located within a central utility access and maintenance easement. Each lot will have direct access to this drive, which will lead directly to Upham Street. Lots 1 and 6 are located at the western portion of the site along Upham Street and currently contain single-family homes, which will be preserved, and then the drive will travel between those 2 buildings. Tract A is located at the east of the site, between it and the school property, and is shown in blue, and this will be an above-ground detention pond and landscape area. Drainage will be conveyed to this pond through the 10-foot drainage easements running along the north and south property lines and also between lots 3 and 4. And staff has determined that each lot is developable under the R3 standards, which will include setbacks, lot coverage requirements, and on-site parking requirements. Lots 1 and 6, although proposed to contain the existing homes, are still developable for the future. Lots 2 and 3 are eligible for single-family homes only, given their smaller size. And lots 4 and 5, at the southeast area of the site and adjacent only to the school property, are eligible for single-family or duplex, given that their lot size is larger. Based on the size of the proposed lots, no multifamily development is permitted within the subdivision, and for this reason, staff will review proposed homes for each individual lot at the time of building permit, rather than an overall site plan. The referral, there were no concerns from the outside agencies, including fire, water, and sanitation, and the city also completed an internal review. There are no remaining comments on the plat, and the construction documents are still under review by the engineering division, and they will need to be approved before building permits can be issued. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days, and letters were sent to property owners within a 600-foot radius, and we received one comment of support for this subdivision on Wheat Ridge Speaks. Ultimately, staff has concluded that the request meets the subdivision regulations and all agencies can serve the property, and it will allow the development of the site as permitted by the R3 zone district to proceed. For those reasons, we are recommending approval of the request. I am available for questions, and I do see our applicant team as well. They don't have a presentation, but can answer questions as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. I will now poll the commissioners for questions. We ask the commissioners hold comments on this case until after the public forum. Start with Commissioner Simbai.
No questions at this time, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Ohm.
Just one question. Does the proposed right-of-way provide like a detached sidewalk?
It's a 5-foot attached sidewalk.
It's existing attached, right?
I believe there's an existing substandard sidewalk, and the street is being widened slightly to accommodate on-street parking and a wider sidewalk.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Disney.
The two homes that are currently existing on, I think, Lot 1 and 6, are those slated eventually to be developed, or are they going to remain? Is this part of the whole?
That would be a better question for the applicant.
Okay.
Either way, those homes would meet development standards, and any new development would also, they could only be single-family homes.
Okay. Could someone answer that question?
If you could step up to the podium here, please. State your name, spell your last name, and provide an address, please.
Yes, Kieran O'Brien, 3900 Upham Street. We have no intention of demoing those houses. They have been remodeled, and we are choosing to keep those as is. So there is no intention of removing those homes.
All right, thank you.
Can you give me your first and last name again?
Kieran, C-I-A-R-A-N, O'Brien. And those both have remodel permits into the city, so, and are close to being closed out.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the last thing you said. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, we have permits, remodel permits for both those homes, just, and we're in the process of doing that right now.
Okay,
So zero intention of removing them.
all right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Leo? And the only question I have is on the utility easement. Does that indicate that the utilities are serviced from the street side or from the rear of the property?
They're all the utilities are coming from Upham Street.
Are
into the
they
property.
buried?
Yes, they would have to be buried or any new utilities, they're all underground under the easement.
Great. And just so I'm clear, the east side, Tract A, is a stormwater detention area, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I have no further questions. Commissioners? I will now open the public hearing for case number WS 21-02, an application by Silver Cloud Properties, LLC, for approval of a 6-lot major subdivision in the residential 3 zone district located at 3900 and 3920 Upham Street. If you plan to comment, we ask that you please limit your comments to this case. We typically administer an oath for any participant in a public hearing, staff, applicants, and the public. In this hybrid meeting format, we're administering that oath in a different way. If you comment during a public hearing tonight, by choosing to testify, you are agreeing that the testimony you give will be the truth as you know it. Are there any speakers in the audience that have signed up to speak this evening?
No one has signed up in person.
Okay, and anybody on Zoom, Tammy?
There are a couple people, so if you are on Zoom and you would wish to speak, if you can please use the raise your hand feature. If you are on the phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. Currently, nobody has raised their hand.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this case? If there's no one else, I will close the public forum. We'll now poll the commissioners for comments on the case or any additional questions. Commissioner Simbai?
Yeah, this is pretty clear to me. I didn't have any questions. It was presented well, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Ohm?
I would agree that this seems pretty clear of what the applicant is trying to do, and the staff has made a good presentation, so I have no further comments or questions on it.
Thank you, Commissioner Ohm. Commissioner Disney?
No comment.
Commissioner Leo? No. Thank you. And the only comment I would make is that I appreciate all the work that's gone into this one. I know it was subject of a bit of controversy a little while ago, and I'm glad we were able to get to this point, and it sounds like the project is moving forward and will provide a benefit to the community. We will now seek motions on this case. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend approval of case number WS-21-02, a request for approval of a major subdivision on property located at 3900 and 3920 Upham Street and Zone Residential 3 for the following reasons. 1, all requirements of the Subdivision Regulations, Article 4 of the Zoning and Development Code have been met. Number 2, all agencies can provide services to the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense, with the following conditions. Number 1, the applicant shall pay the required fees in lieu of parkland dedication at time of each building permit. Number 2, the developer shall enter into a subdivision improvement agreement with the city at the time of recordation of the subdivision plat.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Tammy. Our second public hearing tonight is for case MS-21-07. This is an application filed by Frank Walensky with Power Surveying for approval of a minor subdivision to replat 5 lots into 2 lots on property zone Residential 1C and located at 2844 Depew Street. First, we'll hear a presentation from staff and then questions from the commission. After that, we will open the public forum for comment on this item. May I have the staff report, please?
Hello, my name is Zareen Tasneem, and I'm a planner with the City of Wheat Ridge's Community Development Department. I'm presenting case number MS 2107, which is a request for approval of a two-lot minor subdivision on property zoned residential 1C, R1C, and located at 2844 Depew Street. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the subdivision regulations, and this digital presentation. The property is within the city of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore the Planning Commission does have jurisdiction to hear this case. The property is located on the east side of Depew Street between West 28th Avenue and West 29th Avenue. The Richard Hart Estate Park is located to the southeast. The property currently contains a single-family house and 2 sheds. An alley runs along the rear of the property. The combined total area of the subject site is about 16,000 square feet, or 0.3815 acres. The site is zoned R1C, which is our smallest lot, single-family residential zone district. The site is generally surrounded by residential zone districts and uses. 29th Avenue to the north is primarily a commercial corridor in this area, and parcels along it are zoned Commercial 1 or C1. As stated earlier, a subdivision plat is a technical document that reconfigures lots, tracts, or parcels for sale or development. As a reminder, a subdivision plat does not affect the zoning or permitted uses on the property. It enables development already permitted by the zoning. Because the plat affects 5 lots, it is classified as a minor subdivision, and Planning Commission is the ultimate approving body. There will not be a public hearing at City Council. With that, we'll look at the plat, in this case 2 pages. This is the first sheet, which contains the standard notes and declarations and signatures for the owner, the city, and the county. The second sheet is the graphic portion, which establishes new lot lines and easements. Let's zoom in and walk through that one. This is the same image zoomed in. North is up. Highlighted here in orange are the existing conditions of the existing 5 lots, each of which are 25 feet wide. Outlined here in blue are the 2 proposed lots. With any subdivision, the city will evaluate the adjacent right-of-way. In this case, it was determined the current width of Depew Street is wide enough to construct the frontage improvements. Therefore, no right-of-way dedication is required along that frontage. However, since the alleyway along the back of the property has existed as a prescriptive right-of-way alley, an 8-foot wide strip of right-of-way along the eastern rear property line was required to be dedicated, seen here shaded in blue. This image highlights the new easements being established. The yellow represents easement areas for utilities. Typically, we see perimeter easements on new residential lots. As part of the review process, the application was sent on referral to outside agencies and other city departments. The engineering division has approved the plat. All utility agencies can serve the property, and the developer will need to work with those entities to install necessary infrastructure and taps. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days, and letters were sent to property owners within a 600-foot radius. No comments were received during that comment period. Staff has concluded that all agencies can serve the property and that all requirements of the subdivision regulations have been met. Therefore, we are recommending approval with 2 conditions. 1, the requirement for fees in lieu of parkland dedication be paid at time of building permit. And 2, public improvements must meet current design standards with new development, or fees in lieu should be provided, to be determined by the engineering division during the building review. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to poll the commissioners to see if there are any questions. Please hold comments until after the public forum. We'll start with Commissioner Leo. Questions? Commissioner Disney.
No questions.
Commissioner Ull.
No questions.
Commissioner Simbai.
Just one, is the applicant here? I was just wondering if you could explain perhaps why the lots weren't just, equal in size.
I'd ask, yeah, please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address, please.
Damon Decker, D-E-C-K-E-R. Address is 3333 Bryant Street, Denver.
Thank you.
Actually, that was the original intent, was to split them right in the middle. There's some really nice old trees on the property, and so we adjusted it a few feet so that we could save those trees. That was it.
Great, thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you. And the only question I have is the comment from West Metro Fire about a fire hydrant. Can you tell us about that?
Sure, that's typically a standard comment from West Metro Fire. They usually assess if there's enough fire hydrants on the street within a certain feet of an existing hydrant. If they find that there isn't one, typically with the subdivision or any other type of development, they will request that to be added in.
So will there be a fire hydrant installed in the block?
That will be required.
Yes.
Yeah, so that will need to be installed by the applicant.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Well, I have no further questions. We'll now open the public forum. The public forum for case number WZ 21-04 is an application filed, I'm sorry, the wrong one. Case number MS 2107. This is an application filed by Frank Walensky for power surveying for approval of a minor subdivision to replat 5 lots into 2 lots on property zoned R1C and located at 2844 Depew Street. We ask that you please limit your comments to this case. Are there any members of the public in the audience that would like to speak on this issue?
No one has signed up in person?
Please step up. When you get to the podium, please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address, please.
My name is Daniel Reyna, R-E-Y-N-A. I live at 2815 Depew Street, basically across the street. There was the line in there about public improvements or fees generated. The sidewalks, Depew is the only street that doesn't have sidewalks, connecting 29th to 26th. Besides Fenton and Ames, those all have sidewalks. The west side has no sidewalks. The east side, I think I heard substandard. That seems to describe what's on the east side of that street. So can you, anyone elaborate on the plan for the sidewalks? Will they remain the same on the east side where the subdivision is going?
Great. Thank you. Are there any other members of the audience in person that would like to comment this evening? We will turn it over to Tammy. Are there anybody on Zoom that's interested in commenting on this case?
Again, there are a few people online. If you are online and you would like to speak, can you please use the raise your hand feature? If you are on the phone, please press *9. And I do see one. Mr. Sorensen, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, can you hear me?
Yep. If you can please give your name and address, that would be great. And the spelling of your last name.
Ted Sorensen, S-O-R-E-N-S-O-N. My address is 2845 Chase Street. And my question is there's one house on the lot now, and the question is with it being broke up into 2 lots, is the plan to build just one more house on there, so there'd be one house on each lot?
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen. Is there anybody else online that would like to comment?
No, I'm seeing nobody else.
Okay, we will then close the public comment on this issue, and we'll turn it over to staff for response.
Sure, so in response to if there'll be a house on each lot, there will be. So the R1C zone district You're only permitted to build single-family homes on eligible lots, so there will be one new house on each lot. There was a demolition permit submitted by the applicant recently to demolish the existing structures on the property, to clear it and then prep it for development. In terms of the sidewalk questions, I believe we have a staff member from the engineering division on the line, and he might be able to speak to that a little better.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hey, this is Jordan Jeffries. I'm a civil engineer with the city of Wheat Ridge. Yeah, we'll require a 5-foot attached sidewalk across the property frontage. So they'll have to put in an ADA compliant sidewalk there.
And maybe just to add, guessing what your question might be, the applicant will only be required to install the portion along their street frontage, which is typical of development. We don't currently have a budget to put it on the entire length of the sidewalk. It often comes incrementally, and then over time, we try to fill in those missing gaps. We know there's not good sidewalk on both sides of that entire block of Depew.
Thank you. Daniel, did you have an additional question? Okay, we will reopen the public forum to allow you to make a comment, please. Step up to the podium, and again, provide your name and your address.
My name is Daniel Reyna, R-E-Y-N-A, 2815 Depew. To clarify on that comment, it will be performed just on that lot for this effort, but he's mentioned things come incrementally. Does that mean there is a actionable plan to add sidewalks, or like if money comes available, we put sidewalks in?
Anytime development occurs that increases square footage by 60% or more, or new development occurs, they're required to build sidewalk. The city does not have identified funding for the balance of Depew Street.
So these 5 lots will have a nice sidewalk, and then it goes back down to the 3-foot.
Yes.
Thank you. And once again, we'll close public forum on this case. I'd like to poll the commissioners to see if there are any comments or other questions on this case. We'll start with Commissioner Simbai.
It's really just more of a question. My eyes are not as good as they used to be. When was this lakeside written up, Lauren, or Ms. Tasney?
I saw it said 1890 for the notary.
1890?
Yeah, that's correct. I think it's one of the oldest plats we have in the city, and you'll notice the street names were different than 140 years ago.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ullman?
No questions, but yeah, I just found it a little bit interesting with the history of it said something about County of Arapahoe. I think that's just where the notary had performed their duty. But the street names, Pine, Elm, and Palm, that's really interesting because those are totally 2 different geographic locations. But no other questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Disney?
No questions.
Commissioner Leal?
Nothing.
I too am fascinated by this and I'm glad you included it. I think they should have probably kept Ashland and Washington. But that's just me. I have no particular comments on this case. If the commissioners have any other questions or comments, if not, we would entertain a motion on this case.
I move to recommend approval of case number MS-21-07, a request for approval of a minor subdivision to replat 5 lots into 2 lots on property zone residential 1C, R-1C, and located at 2844 Depew Street for the following reasons. 1, all agencies can provide services to the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense. 2, the requirements of Article 4 of the Zoning and Development Code have been met with the following conditions. 1, fees in lieu of parkland dedication shall be provided at time of building permit. 2, public improvements, i.e. curb, gutter, and sidewalk, must meet current design standards with new development, or fees in lieu shall be provided to be determined by the engineering division during building permit review.
Thank you. Other comments?
I have one question that has no bearing on my decision, but was it mentioned in the staff report that the R1C has the bulk plan regulations?
If it wasn't, then it does apply, and at time of building permit, that will be assessed against the permits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ohm. Further questions, comments?
Just one additional question. When, in terms of parkland dedication, in other cases, when there's already a structure, that takes away from some of the parkland dedication, but in the case when it's demolished, does that go back to zero and must then pay for 2 new buildings?
That's a good question. So we still count that, and they get credit for that unit. The premise being that there was at some point a resident that already sort of created the impact on parkland, so it's not an additional impact.
Thank you.
Commissioner Disney? No? Okay. No further comments or questions. We'll call for a vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you, Tammy. Our final agenda item tonight is public hearing on case number WZ21-04. This is an application filed by Norris Design on behalf of Evergreen Clear Creek Crossing for approval of a zone change from planned commercial development, PCD, to planned mixed-use development, PMUD, with an outline development plan for property located at 4051 Clear Creek Drive. We will now hear a report by staff, followed by a presentation from the applicant, if I'm correct on that. Yes? And then we'll have our public forum on this case. We'll turn it over to Scott for the staff presentation.
Thank you again. This is case number WZ2104, a request for approval of a zone change from planned commercial development to planned mixed-use development with an outline development plan located on the west side of Clear Creek Drive, north of 40th Avenue in the Clear Creek Crossing development. I'd like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the comprehensive plan, and this presentation. The properties within the City of Wheat Ridge and all appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met. Therefore, Planning Commission has jurisdiction to hear this case. This is a 2020 aerial view of the property, which is outlined in red in the middle of the screen. And the site is located beyond the current northern terminus of Clear Creek Drive on the west side of that street and north of 40th Avenue. And this is a 2020 aerial view, but if you've been out there recently, the site does look a bit different. This apartment complex has been completed. We've got the hospital campus under construction. We've got some commercial sites down here. So pretty much the vacant portion is in the middle. And then ponds owned by the Coors Brewing Company are located to the west and south of the site. The site sits on the Wheat Ridge city limit with unincorporated Jefferson County to the west. This is the zoning map for the area. The property is currently zoned planned commercial development, which was approved in 2011 as part of the original Clear Creek Crossing rezoning. And the PCD zoning is shown in gray. There's a light blue area to the east, zoned planned mixed-use development, and this zoning was approved in 2018 as part of the current development of Clear Creek Crossing and included both an outline development plan called an ODP and a design pattern book, which breaks the site up into multiple planning areas with different standards and different allowed uses. And the subject property was not included within that rezoning boundary. Purpose of the request is to rezone the property to planned mixed-use development. This corresponds to the PMUD, planned mixed-use development zoning, that covers the adjacent Clear Creek Crossing site. The subject property is described as Planning Area 9 to complement the existing 8 planning areas in the adjacent PMUD. Planning Area 9 is proposed as an extension of the Homestead District, which with its own distinct ODP and design pattern book. Although these documents make reference to and are modeled after the 2018 ODP and design pattern book for Clear Creek Crossing, they are standalone documents and no modifications are proposed to the zoning documents governing the balance of the Clear Creek Crossing site. If the zone change is approved, the applicant is proposing to build multifamily rental apartments on the site, which would be phase 2 of the existing Outlook apartment site across Clear Creek Drive to the east. This slide shows a map from the proposed design pattern book that shows the PA9 site in context with the rest of the Clear Creek Crossing development. And on this map, north is to the left. The applicant is proposing to call the site PA9 and to include it in the Homestead District for purposes of design standards. This table shows the proposed development standards for the site, which are similar to those for the existing Outlook apartments in Planning Area 2 across the street to the east. However, there are a couple of differences. Notably, the only permitted uses for PA9 would be residential, with some limited public and civic uses, including open space, also being permitted. Commercial uses are not anticipated, nor will they be permitted in this planning area. Also, the proposed building maximum height of 50 feet is shorter than the 65 feet allowed in Planning Area 2, and much shorter than the 90 feet allowed in that district for commercial buildings. Lastly, there's a proposed cap on the total number of dwelling units permitted on this site at 250 units. Although this area is actually exempted from the height and density restrictions in the city charter, the maximum of 250 units will allow reasonable development without overly impacting roads and infrastructure and affecting overall traffic impact numbers for the development. The proposed standards will follow the standards outlined in the design pattern book for Clear Creek Crossing, which mandates a modern agrarian architectural theme for all developments. These standards include material, landscaping, lighting, and site furnishing requirements. The standards will also allow the architecture of the new development to complement the existing Outlook development to the east. This slide shows the proposed access into Planning Area 9 and connections to the other sites. 2 vehicle access points are proposed into the site, one from Clear Creek Drive across from the northern boundary of PA2, which is kind of towards the middle of the screen, and then one between the site and Planning Area 7, which is a future hotel site. These points align with regional circulation goals established in the overall design pattern book for Clear Creek Crossing. And the rezoning also plans for a future trailhead area at the terminus of Clear Creek Drive, which will be extended from its current location further north to provide access to this development. The trailhead area will include an on-site trailhead structure and open space. Connections will be made to the trail that ultimately meets up with the Clear Creek Greenbelt further north. Essentially, the current conditions will shift north and a trailhead structure will be added as required by the rezoning documents. As a requirement of a zone change process, there was a neighborhood meeting held on June 30th, 2021 in a virtual Zoom meeting format, and no one attended the meeting besides the applicant team, but we did provide a summary in the staff report. Since Wheat Ridge is not a full-service city, we sent the application on referral to outside agencies, including fire, water, and sanitation, and completed an internal review. There were no objections from outside agencies, and any future development on the site is required to be referred to those agencies with more specific comments about required easements and service setups for the individual buildings. Before the hearing, there was a 15-day posting period, and comments were collected on Wheat Ridge Speaks. Well, they would have been, but we didn't actually receive any comments on this application. A requirement of rezoning applications is to review in compliance with the city's comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan has 2 designations for this area: regional commercial and mixed-use commercial. In this instance, the 2009 comprehensive plan designations were very specifically influenced by the former Cabela's development plans, which called for Cabela's as an anchor tenant. When Planning Area 9 is considered in combination with a larger Clear Creek Crossing development, the project as a whole upholds the long-range goals of the city to create a mixed-use development. The mixed-use commercial designation specifically focuses on long-term infill, redevelopment, and reinvestment with a mix of uses, which does include residential. Ultimately, staff is recommending approval of the request for the following reasons. Proposed zone change will promote public health, safety, and welfare of the community and will not adversely impact the surrounding area. Utility infrastructure adequately services the property. The proposed zone change is consistent with the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan and consistent with the goals for the Clear Creek Crossing area. The zone change will provide additional opportunity for reinvestment in the area, and the criteria used to evaluate a zone change supports the request. That is my presentation. The applicant team is also here and has a short presentation as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. We'll now ask the applicant come up and make their presentation. When you arrive at the podium, we ask that you provide your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
Christine McWright, MC, capital R-I-G-H-T, 1873 South Bel Air, Denver, 80222.
So if anybody's following the game, it is still 10-0 in favor of the Browns, and it's halftime.
Great. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present our proposal, beginning with rezoning, which is the first step in this development, a proposed multifamily residential use. While the site is included in the Clear Creek Crossing subdivision plat, it was not part of the Clear Creek Crossing ODP approved in 2018 and currently under development. Both the proposed Planning Area 9 ODP and the adjacent Clear Creek Crossing ODP are shown in the aerial photo. The ODP Planning Area 9 Homestead District expansion is the proposed rezoning of Clear Creek Crossing Lot 1 within Block 5 from PCD commercial to planned mixed-use development, allowing residential uses primarily. Evergreen's intention is to develop the site with up to 250 apartment units as a second phase to the recently developed Outlook Clear Creek Apartments in a design that will be complementary to Phase 1, as well as to the Clear Creek Crossing plan development overall. The site is generally triangular in shape, with a portion of its east boundary along Clear Creek Drive north of 40th Avenue, and the other two sides fronting the Coors Pond to the west and the south. The site is ideally suited for residential development, giving not only surrounding residential and hotel land uses, but the unique views of Coors Ponds framed by the scenic mountains. As shown in the ODP, Planning Area 9 will be an extension of the Homestead District, which includes Planning Area 2 in the CCC ODP. In addition, the ODP shows vehicular and pedestrian connectivity between planning areas 9 and 7, a future hotel site. Access to Clear Creek Drive will be shared, and the future trail location through this area will remain in its current configuration in an easement with Prospect Park District. A proposed trail structure location is identified at the northern tip of PA9, adjacent to the alignment of Clear Creek Drive, north of its current terminus. Very intentionally, the only proposed allowable uses are residential and public uses. Residential uses include assisted living, single-family, multifamily dwelling units, as well as live-work units. Public uses proposed include park space, public uses, and buildings, utilities, urban gardens, and transit station. In addition, ancillary uses such as parking as well as temporary uses are requested to be allowed. Our development direction currently is to develop the site with an apartment community with an adjacent trailhead, serving as a gateway to the connection between Clear Creek Crossing community and Clear Creek, including its vast regional trail system. Likewise, development standards proposed are very similar to those allowed in the Clear Creek Crossing ODP, including connectivity between parcel and uses, as well as build-to requirements on primary and secondary frontages. The Homestead District includes multifamily residential uses, including apartments and/or townhome formats placed in consideration of the characteristics of the site. Parking in surface lots with above-grade garages, either tucked under residential uses or in separate garage buildings, are allowed. Lastly, a high priority should be placed on both circulation and walkability to other districts, as well as the Clear Creek Trail. Key differences and conditions of this ODP include a limit of 250 dwelling units, building height limited to 50 feet, design and construction of an extension of Clear Creek Drive, including the trailhead parking lot, in order to allow secondary access to the planning area, and the contribution of a portion of the planning area suitable for locating a future trailhead and its facilities. If this ODP is approved, we plan to pursue site plan approval for a 250-unit development comprised of a mix of 18 and 28 unit buildings that will consist of 2 and 3 floors. In addition, we plan to develop 6 carriage unit buildings, which are 2-story units offering 1 bedrooms with tuck-under garages. The clubhouse will be located at the primary entrance, and there will be various amenities and open space areas throughout the site. The future site will include 250 units, as I said, with a building height under 50 feet. Following reviews of the extension of Clear Creek Drive during the SDP application process and associated referrals, we will construct this extension and replace the trailhead parking lot. We will provide a tract for the development of a trailhead and its associated amenities, likely to be constructed by Long's Peak Metro District. Phase 2 of Evergreen's multifamily development will be complementary to Outlook Clear Creek. It will be a lower density and a lower building height compared to Outlook 1, which has 4-story elevator-served buildings. Phase 2 building design will feel more townhome-like, with tuck-under garages in all buildings and no standalone garage structures. Finally, Phase 2 will have its own identity with dedicated amenities and its own unique colors and materials in a different twist on the required modern agrarian design and palette. Design is currently underway, and an SDP application was recently submitted for PA9. We anticipate that SDP will be presented to Planning Commission in early 2022. This preview of the specific development plan illustrates progress on overall site planning, building and amenity locations, the roadway extension, and the future trailhead, including connection to both the new trail and the future parking lot adjacent to the east. There are 3 residential building types proposed in Planning Area 9 SDP, including an 18-plex, 28-plex, and a 3-unit carriage building. 3D clubhouse views illustrate its evolving aesthetic, a take on modern agrarian design that will sit nicely on the site overlooking the South Course Pond. This preview of the SDP clubhouse placement and associated amenities is distinctly different in design from Phase 1. This concludes my presentation. I will be available to answer any questions, as will members of our team. Tonight we have with us in the audience Allison Wenland with Norris Design, and online Rachel Patton with HKS, and Jared Carlin with Norris Design.
Thank you, Christine. We'll now poll the commission for questions, and we ask commissioners to hold the comments on this case until after the public forum. Commissioner Senbai.
Just one question. I think it's more an administrative question. On the agency referral, the Wheat Ridge Engineering Division mentions that it would formally approve if it was at 250 units, but that doesn't happen until SDP. So I'm wondering if for some reason it was above 250 units, what happens with the Wheat Ridge Engineering Division?
Jordan, did you hear that question about if the property were to go above 250 units from a traffic standpoint? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so we would they've already submitted a traffic letter, which is basically an addendum to the original traffic impact study. And it's in compliance with the 250 units. So if they were to go above that, we would just request a revised traffic letter showing the impact of the additional units to make sure it's still in compliance with that original study.
And to clarify, the zoning proposed tonight would cap at 250, so it couldn't even go over that amount.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ulm.
Thank you. The first question I have is, I know things have moved kind of fast in the past couple of years in the city. In regards to the 2009 comp plan, the current hospital site at Lutheran Parkway is designated as a primary employment center, whereas Clear Creek Crossing was designated regional commercial. Now, as SEL Health is building a new hospital at Clear Creek, which is a major employer for the city, where would is there any talk of the primary employment center relocating to this site?
Are you referring to the comprehensive plan designation? Would we redesignate it in the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because
Sure.
Scott had talked about, a contemporary definition of the regional commercial, and I'm just wondering, do we have it, not specifically this project, but as a planning commissioner, we're trying to determine the uses based on the comp plan, and there's been a lot of moving parts in the past couple years.
Right. We had that discussion in a little bit more detail in 2018 when the property sort of as a whole started to take shape. And we don't need to redesignate the property in the comprehensive plan. We do that for projects like Lutheran where it is so egregiously out of step and we have no vision. Because the Lutheran plan really specifically said you can be a hospital or an employment center or nothing else. The designation for this property is a little bit more broad than that. And so when we did the bigger zone change in 2018 for the property as a whole, inviting residential, retail, restaurant, and employment uses, we understood that it was a little bit different than what the comp plan had initially envisioned in 2009. But the other criteria that we rely on, it can be either in compliance with the comprehensive plan or sort of a reasonable approach or interpretation of the comprehensive plan based on an understanding of how things have changed. So in this case, it's just a little bit of a hybrid of like recognizing pieces of that vision from the comp plan, but also recognizing that that vision has evolved and that that's sort of within the acceptable tolerance, not requiring us to update the comp plan specifically in the same way we have to do for Lutheran.
Okay. And then the next question is, I noticed on the cover sheet that the City of Wheat Ridge Planning Commission certification is absent. Will this be, is this a requirement that would be added later?
Yes, that was my oversight, and it will be added to the Mylar when it's printed for signatures.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question that I have not discussed with staff, and this is just a quick question. You may not have the answer. How do we have any idea with this proposed project how many additional pedestrian cycling trips that this would generate on the Clear Creek Trail?
I don't know. I don't know if Jordan would know either.
No,
Yeah,
we
it
don't.
was just-
Oh, go ahead, Jordan, sorry.
Yeah, I don't have an idea of that. We could maybe look into that. But typically our, what we use for traffic trip generation doesn't include bicycle trip generation. So that's something we'd have to look at.
And I apologize for not giving you guys an advance notice about that. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ulm. Commissioner Disney?
I know that the water ponds are retention for Coors, but it seems like the property is abutting those very closely, and I'm wondering what will be done on this to mitigate any pollution or anything going into those water ponds, because wildlife do use them, and that was one of the biggest complaints and things that were mentioned at the meeting for this development way back when. And this wasn't even part of that discussion. So I'm just wondering what the plans are for that.
I might have the applicant speak to some of their designs. I do know that the property lines are pretty set back from the actual edges of the ponds, so they couldn't build right up to right on the shoreline, but looks like Christine's up there.
The applicant, if you would please restate your name, please.
Sure, Christine McWright, MC capital R-I-G-H-T. Yes, so one item of mitigation is a fence between Coors Ponds and this development. One exists right now. We're replacing the fence to the south. It is a chain link fence, so very easy to see through and enjoy the ponds, but it is 6 feet, I believe, in height. So definitely will block folks from walking close to the ponds, and then preserve a barrier for wildlife on the other side.
But what about runoff from parking lot and stuff like that? How are you going to mitigate that?
Right, so our site is engineered to drain to the northeast, so definitely away from the ponds, which are west and to the south. Okay, and then in addition to that, there are setback requirements and a buffer that we are creating on the west, which will include a soft surface trail heading up to the regional trail system, to the amenity itself, and then connecting to the regional trail that heads to Clear Creek.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Leal?
I had my question answered already, that's all I had.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions, and it does, mine kind of builds off the question on the pond for the applicant, please. Is there a long-term plan for the pond? Is it going to remain in part of, Coors owns that property,
Right.
correct?
That's a question for Coors, who owns the ponds, but right now, it's important to their overall business operation plan, and it includes a significant amount of water toward their storage allotment.
Great, thank you. And the other question I had, these multifamily dwellings will be rentals, correct?
That's correct. Market rate rentals.
Had you given any thought to townhomes or condos?
For purchase?
Yes.
No, we have not.
The original intent was for rentals.
Pardon me?
The original intent was for rental units.
That's correct.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And do you anticipate a sort of a rough time when you'll be presenting the specific development plan?
I do. So we are in process right now, going into our second submittal here soon. So based on that and estimated review turnaround, I project that we'll be before the Planning Commission to present that early in 22, probably January.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
All the questions I have for the applicant. I do have a question for staff. Denver Water mentions their easement, which runs directly adjacent to this, and it's a fairly wide easement. Are there setbacks on this, or will it overlap?
Yes, Denver Water is very strict about what can and can't go in their easement. They don't even allow trees or large shrubs. A lot of permanent features can't be located there. So it does have a pretty significant impact on that northeastern, I guess, stretch of the site along Clear Creek Drive. And so when you looked at the applicant's proposed plan, that's why the buildings are set back fairly significantly from the street out of the easement. But I believe it's 80 feet wide, and then there's some tolerance within that, even further back potentially.
Great. Thank you. I have, well, no, that's okay. I have no further questions. We will now open our public forum on this case. The public forum for case WZ 21-04, this is an application filed by Norris Design on behalf of Evergreen Clear Creek Crossing for approval of a zone change from planned commercial development, PCD, to mixed-use development, PMUD, with an outline development plan for property located at 4051 Clear Creek Drive. If you plan to comment, we ask you limit your comments to this case. Are there any in-person speakers on this case?
No one has signed up in person.
Thank you. Are there anyone online, Tammy?
Again, there are a few people online. If you wish to comment, please use the raise your hand feature. If you are on the phone, please use *9 to raise your hand. And currently, nobody is raising their hand.
No one online is choosing to comment tonight. So I will now close the public forum on this case. We will now poll our commissioners for questions or comments on this. We'll start with Commissioner Simbai.
I just wanted to make a comment that this is a good example of what happens over time. And so it seems to match what's happening in the other spot, but interesting how things change.
Thank you. Commissioner Ohm?
Thank you. I appreciate the applicant, what they're proposing. We definitely need more housing in the city, and I know that probably everybody hears that it just can't be built fast enough. So thank you for expanding that. And, you know, as far as picking an area, this is probably one of the best areas that you could, you know, put in an apartment without little to no objection. It's a really great site. I understand why the applicant is not building as high as they can, and that's one of the things that I know some people have, you know, asked about. You know, some citizens are worried about, you know, height, and even though the city would allow something much taller, in the end, that's not always the case what the developer wants. And so I think this will be a good fit for the city at this location. The other comment I just want to make too is that I hope that at some point we do have conversations. I have no objection to this project connecting to the Clear Creek Trail. I bike along the Clear Creek Trail several times a week. I just want to know if, you know, at some point we quantify the amount of travel of people entering into the Clear Creek, just so that everybody has a good experience, an equitable experience. And so that's why I kind of asked that question, that, you know, how do we look at this project, not just from a car, because we are turning as a society into more of a multimodal. And the Clear Creek Trail is a really nice amenity for Wheat Ridge and the greater Denver area to go from Denver all the way up to Golden. So I appreciate staff's work on this project. It really seems to be pretty seamless of it, you know, attaching onto the adjacent site. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ohm. Commissioner Disney?
No comment.
Commissioner Leo?
Nothing.
Thank you, and I would echo what Commissioner Ohm has said. I think this is a logical next step for the development of this project. It makes sense, and it is within, I think, within the outlook or within the plan that was developed for this way back when, and I'm glad to see it moving forward. Are there any other comments from the commission? If seeing none, we will entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of case number WZ-21-04, a request for approval of a zone change from planned commercial development, PCD, to planned mixed-use development, PMUD, with an outline development plan, ODP, for property located at approximately 4051 Clear Creek Drive for the following reasons. 1, the proposed zone change will promote the public health, safety, or welfare of the community and does not result in an adverse effect on the surrounding area. 2, utility infrastructure adequately services the property. 3, the proposed zone change is consistent with the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan and consistent with the goals for the Clear Creek crossing area. 4, the zone change will provide additional opportunity for reinvestment in the area. 5, the criteria used to evaluate a zone change supports the request.
Second.
Thank you. If there are no further comments or questions, we'll call for a vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Tammy. Item number 8 on our agenda is new business. There are 2 announcements tonight regarding members of the commission. First, Commissioner Ohm, who represents District 2, has asked to make a statement.
Thank you. I just wanted to let everyone know that my term for Planning Commission officially ends March of 2022, but this is likely my last meeting pending the election. I have now served for 11 years and enjoyed being on the Planning Commission with past and present planning commissioners and planning staff, of which everyone has been civil and professional. The experience has provided me with tremendous value as a citizen and also to my professional work as a landscape architect. I would encourage anyone watching to become connected to your community civically with the city, as there are numerous ways to serve on boards, commissions, and other groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ohm. Next, we have been informed by Commissioner Ari Krichiver, who represents District 1, that due to personal and professional commitments, he has decided to step down from the Planning Commission. We thank Ari and Scott for their work on the Planning Commission and on behalf of the citizens of Wheat Ridge, and we wish them both the best. Wheat Ridge City Councilors for District 1 and 2 have been informed and will begin the appointment process to fill the vacancies. Is there any other new business tonight?
I do have a couple of updates for you. Thank you for those updates, Mr. Chair. For dates, we will not have the November 4th meeting. We will have the November 18th meeting. And then we'll know about December as we get a little closer. And then my updates for you tonight are more project related than development related. So just a couple of public service announcements. The Wadsworth groundbreaking took place last week, and we have a public meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, October 26th. It's an open house format here in City Hall from 6 to 8. All the same content that's shared at that public meeting will be available online on whatsupwheatridge.com. Also on What's Up Wheat Ridge is the Let's Talk program. If you live in the Fruitdale or Anderson Park neighborhoods, that's basically between the creek and the interstate, then a survey is live for your neighborhood now. Tell us what you love, what you need. That is the first round survey on the website. We will have meetings in December on the Zoom format if you want to talk more specifically about your neighborhood. If you live in the Fruitdale neighborhood, which is north of the creek and west of Kipling, we also have a new program that's in there, the Sustainable Neighborhoods Program. I don't think I've talked a lot in the Planning Commission venue about our sustainability program, but we hired a sustainability coordinator at the city a couple years ago. She runs a wide variety of programs. We have a sustainability committee that's made up of citizens. One of her many programs includes the Sustainable Neighborhoods Program, and Fruitdale is the third neighborhood to participate in that. There's also a neighborhood that'll be joining that program in East Wheat Ridge. The first 2 neighborhoods, it's sort of citizen-driven. They did a few really cool projects that were featured in a council proclamation the other day. They organized community trash hauling. They had zero-waste food truck events. They did a seed swap, kind of like a little library, but for seeds for your garden. Composting workshops, home energy audits, and some training on how to create a wildlife-friendly yard. So if you're in Fruitdale, that Sustainable Neighborhood Survey will be going live soon. She also has a program for fall yard waste drop-off. This is, I think, our 2nd year. So the weekend after Halloween, you'll be able to take your pumpkins and your leaves and sticks and branches to Anderson Park. It's November 6th and 7th. It's only $5 for residents. You do need to register. You can find that on the city's webpage. If you're on the homepage, there's a tile that talks about the fall yard waste drop-off. And the last program that I'll mention is also a new one related to trees that are dying. So the Hazardous Tree Grant Program can be very expensive to remove a tree, but also pretty important. So we have a 50% matching grant where we can provide up to $1,500 per property to the landowner to help remove a tree that is dying or hazardous. You can apply for the grant through the end of the month, closes on November 1st. And once we receive the application, we'll send one of our forester experts to the property to confirm that the tree is eligible for that matching grant.
And how do you find out more information about the tree program?
The tree program is on the Parks Department homepage. They have a
Parks
little
Department
news
homepage.
flash, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Lauren,
And-
oh,
Go ahead, Commissioner Disney.
I have a question. Can't talk tonight. In regards to trees, I noticed that on a lot of the more recently developed commercial sites, a lot of the trees have died. Do we as a city require those to be removed and replanted, or do they just let them linger?
Yeah, it's a good question. So this time of year, it's always a little hard with a new tree. Scott can probably answer this better than I can, Mr. Ohm could. It's always a little hard at this time of year to determine if it's dead or dormant, especially with a newer tree. Property owners, commercial property owners who have planted a tree, usually through a nursery, often has it a warranty? The tree could be replaced within a certain period of time by the owner and the nursery for free typically. So it's in their best interest to do that. The city does have a program, the landscape inspection program. We started it about 4 years ago. It has been an unfunded position for the last 2 years. But it is funded in the 2022 budget, which was recently approved. So we will be hiring somebody in March or April to join our team whose primary responsibility will be to go out to properties with the landscape plan and do an inspection to make sure that things that are dead are replaced. We did not fund that program the last 2 years because we understood that COVID had a pretty big impact on businesses and we didn't want to be overly burdensome. But we do value the livelihood of landscaping and we will restart that program next year.
Thank you.
Commissioner Leo?
Yeah, I have a question about whose responsibility is it for the trees in the green belt that are in Wheat Ridge? Is that the county? Is that who's? Because there are a lot of trees that need work, or they're dying, or they're infested with beetles, things like that.
I would start with the Parks Department, the Open Space Division. Typically, even if the county owns a portion of it or has an easement, city staff are usually the first people to check with in terms of maintenance. I don't know specifically what kind of maintenance they do in the more naturalized open space areas.
So there is no program specifically for the green belt.
No, we have a Parks Division and an Open Space Division, and so the Greenbelt being more of a naturalized area, we have a team of staff members dedicated to that. So it's either city-owned or county-owned, and there are a variety of easements in there. So it's a public entity for sure, not typically a private property owner. But it would be the Parks Department or the Open Space Division specifically that would know the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Leo. Any other questions or comments of a general interest from Commissioner?
I have a follow-up question about the sound mitigation at the bottling facility. Has that proven to be successful? Is that completed?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can look into it before our next meeting. Yeah, I'll bring that update. Do you know?
I actually drove by there yesterday. The wall is done, but as far as if it's successful, I don't know.
All right, if no news is good news, I am not aware of additional complaints coming in recently.
And I don't recall, was that part of the agreement, the company decided or agreed to follow-up test?
Yes, they are required, I believe, to submit testing annually to the city manager's office.
Thank you.
Yep.
And an update, for anybody following the game, it is the end of the third quarter, and the Cleveland Browns are still ahead by 10, 17-7. And as a resident of the Anderson Park area, I look forward to responding to the survey because I think District 4 certainly could use some attention. Sometimes we feel a little neglected up there, but we are a very important part of the city. And if there are no other questions this evening, I'm sorry, Commissioner Sunby.
Just one comment I wanted to say to Commissioner Ohm. Scott, it's been a pleasure serving with you. Your professionalism, learned a lot from you, and I think I can see how the election might go and say thank you for your service to the Planning Commission and your continued service to the city. It's really been a pleasure serving alongside you.
Thank you. I second that. Thank you, Scott. Is there any old business? We'll move on to our last item here.
No old business.
And so our final item tonight is a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second. We'll call for a vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
And tonight's meeting is adjourned. Thank you.